This video is on Unit 4, Polynomial Functions, Chapter 8, Intro to Polynomial Functions, Lesson number 2, Dividing Polynomials. In these first two examples, it's a quick review on dividing polynomials when we're dividing by a monomial. And so in example number 1, it says 6x to the 4th minus 15x cubed plus 3x squared is being divided by 3x squared. So just as a reminder, again, all we're doing here is taking each term in the numerator and dividing it by each term, by the 3x squared that's in the denominator. So when we take 6x to the 4th and we divide by 3x squared, the big numbers out front are going to follow the rules and divide. With exponents, we're going to subtract. So 6 divided by 3 is 2. You have more x's in the numerator, so 4 minus 2 is 2, so we have 2x squared for our first term, minus. 15 divided by 3 is 5. Again, we have more x's in the top than we did in the bottom, so let's subtract. 3 minus 2 is 1, so I have 5x, negative 5x. And then lastly, 3x squared divided by 3x squared is just going to be a 1. So there's our answer for number 1. I do want to look at example number 2 just because it's a little more complicated than number 1. We have 21a to the 5th, b to the 3rd, minus 14a cubed b squared plus 63a squared b divided by 7ab. So again, what we're doing here is we're dividing by a monomial. So each term in the top gets divided by the 7ab. 21 divided by 7 is 3. And now remember, with your exponents, you're going to subtract. We have more a's and b's in the top, so we're just going to subtract 5 minus 1 gives us a to the 4th. B to the 3 minus 1 is 2. For the next term, it's going to be minus. 14 divided by 7 is 2. Again, subtract your exponents. For the a's, we'll have 3 minus 1, which is 2. B to the 2 minus 1 is 1. And then for our last term, it's going to be a positive. 63 divided by 7 is 9. And so again, subtract those exponents. 2 minus 1 for the a's is 1. And then the b's are going to go away. They subtract out. They cancel out. So that, again, is dividing by a monomial. But what if we're not dividing by a monomial? What if we're dividing by a binomial? Now, this section here is asking you to divide by factoring. We are not going to do that. We are not going to divide by factoring. This third part here says, what if factoring is not possible? Which a lot of times is not, which is why I'm not going to take a whole lot of time there and talk to you about how to divide by factoring. There are two methods that we fall back on for dividing by a binomial. The method number 1 here is long division, and method number 2 is synthetic division. Now, I'm going to talk to you about synthetic division. I am not going to talk about long division. Long division, in my opinion, is very complicated, very drawn out. The steps are hard to follow. So I'm not even going to show you long division. We are not doing this by long division. I want you to concentrate your efforts on synthetic division. With synthetic division, you have, you're dividing by a binomial. So we're dividing by something like x plus 8. And what we want to do is we want to take that x plus 8 and we want to set it equal to 0. Now, there are lots of steps here. So make sure you're following along, little bits at a time. We're going to take the x plus 8, set it equal to 0, and then get the x by itself. So minus the 8, and we get x equals negative 8. Now, here's the beauty of synthetic division. Let me just kind of give you a little bit of background. Synthetic division gets rid of all of the variables. So it simplifies the dividing process. We're going to get rid of all the variables. We are only going to use the coefficients. Looking at the trinomial that we're dividing, we are only going to use the numbers in front. So in front of the x squared, there is a 1. In front of the x, there's a 3, and then our constant is negative 43. Another thing that I just now remembered is standard form is necessary. You have to make sure that everything is in standard form before you set this up. So 1x squared plus 3x minus 43 is in standard form. I only want the 1 and the 3 and the negative 43. So I'm going to write that there. Now I'm going to use this x equals negative 8. I'm just going to use the negative 8, and that's going to go to the left of the 1, and I'm going to put a little box around the negative 8. I want you to skip a little space and draw a line, and then what we need to do here is draw a box around the end, and I'll explain why here in just a second. When we do synthetic division, the first number is always going to come down below the line. Now, if you can multiply and you can add, then you can do synthetic division. So what we're going to do is we are going to multiply this way. We're going to multiply negative 8 times 1, and we're going to put our answer above that line. So negative 8 times 1 is negative 8. And then we're going to add down. 3 plus negative 8 is a negative 5. Now we're going to continue that. We're going to multiply again. We're going to multiply the 8 times the negative 5 and put that answer above the line. Negative 8 times negative 5 is a positive 40. And then we're going to add the negative 43 plus the 40 and get negative 3. So the reason why I put a box around that end piece is because this is what we call the remainder. Now, synthetic division itself is a very simple process. The hard part is getting it set up and then interpreting the answer. So let me show you how to interpret the answer. If I take an x squared and I divide by an x, when we subtract those exponents, 2 minus 1 gives me 1. So what we're doing here is we're taking our 1x squared plus 3x minus 43, and we're dividing out an x plus 8. So the x squared is going to decrease to an x. And that's what your answer is going to do. It's going to decrease that x squared, and our final answer at the bottom is going to reveal itself as 1x minus 5. And then for our remainder, it's negative, so I'm going to put minus 3 over the binomial is x plus 8, which is your divisor. Okay? It's a little weird. You've never done this before. Give it some time. Let's do another one. Example number 7. 2n squared minus 16n plus 19 is being divided by n minus 7. Making sure, again, everything is in standard form, and it is. N squared, n, and then the constant. We're going to take that n minus 7, set it equal to 0, add the 7, and we get n equals 7. Remember that that number is going to go out to the left in its own little box. That's basically what you're dividing by. And once we set up the synthetic division, that's what you're going to be multiplying by. So then we're going to bring down our coefficients, which is a 2, a negative 16, and a 19. Skip a little space, draw a line. Always bring the first term down below the line. Then you can start multiplying. So again, we're going to multiply, put the answer above the line. 7 times 2 is 14, and then add negative 16 plus 14 is negative 2. Repeat. Multiply 7 times negative 2 and move that up. 7 times negative 2 is negative 14. And add 19 plus a negative 14 is going to be a positive 5. Oops, I forgot my box. And that, of course, is our remainder there. Go up to your dividend here. That's what this thing is called, is the dividend. And look at the largest exponent and always decrease that by 1 because you just took out an n to the first power. So my answer is 2n minus 2. Now, your remainder on this one's a positive 5, so you're going to put plus 5 over the n minus 7. Again, number 8. Y to the third plus 5y squared minus 7y plus 2 divided by y minus 2. Checking for standard form, y to the third, y squared, y, and then my constant. So everything is there. And I have y minus 2. I'm going to set it equal to 0, add the 2, y equals 2, and the 2 goes in the box. Using all my coefficients up here, I've got a 1, a 5, a negative 7, and a 2. Bring that first term down and start multiplying. 2 times 1 is 2. 5 plus 2 is 7. 2 times 7 is 14. Negative 7 plus 14 is 7. 2 times 7 is 14. And 2 plus 14 is 16. And again, I forgot to draw that little box for my remainder. Now, notice we've got more things at the bottom than we had before, and it's because we started with a y cubed. And again, you decrease that exponent by 1, which would be a 2, and that's what your answer is going to start with, and it's going to decrease as you go. So a couple of things. This last number is always the remainder. Here's another little hint. The number directly to the left of the remainder is always your constant. It's always your constant. So to write this answer, I've got 1y squared, positive 7y, a positive 7, and a positive 16 over y minus 2 for my remainder. All right, so that brings us to this last section of our notes. What if we have missing powers in the dividend? What if we have missing powers? So look at the dividend here. K cubed minus 17k plus 32. So when we talk about standard form, it says to start with the largest exponent and decrease as you go. So where's the k squared? Well, there is no k squared. And with synthetic division, if you have a missing term, you have to hold the spot. We're going to hold that spot with a 0. I'm going to put 0k squared and a little up arrow there to indicate that the k squared term is missing, and we're going to hold its spot with that 0. I'm going to take the k plus 5, set it equal to 0, minus the 5, k equals negative 5. So that's going to go in the little box out front, bringing down my coefficients 1, 0, negative 17, and a 32. Your degree here is a 3, so you should have 4 terms. 1, 2, 3, and 4. You should have 4 of them. Now we're going to bring the first term down and multiply, add to the end. And remember, this last term is your remainder. So negative 5 times 1 is negative 5. 0 plus negative 5 is negative 5. Negative 5 times negative 5 is a positive 25. Negative 17 plus 25 is 8. Negative 5 times 8 is a negative 40. And 32 plus negative 40 is a negative 8. Remember to decrease your degree. It was a k cubed, so my answer will start with a k squared, and we just decrease as we go. So 1k squared minus 5, that'll be the k. Remember that that next term that's right next to the remainder is always your constant, and the remainder goes over the divisor. Last one, number 10. 8x to the fourth minus 64x cubed plus 3x minus 28 is being divided by x minus 8. Again, looking at this, checking for standard form first, I can see that we're missing an x squared. So I'm going to put a 0x squared here. FYI, you will not always be missing the square term. You might be missing the constant. In that case, you would put a 0 in for the constant. You might be missing the linear term, so you'd have to put 0x. It just kind of depends. So the first step is to take the x minus 8, set it equal to 0. I'm going to add the 8, and we get x equals 8. That goes in my little box out front. Bring down the coefficients, 8, negative 64. Don't forget that missing term. Everything has its spot. Everything has its space. Its column. 8 times 8 is 64. Negative 64 plus 64 is 0. 8 times 0 is 0. 0 plus 0 is still 0. 8 times 0 is 0 again. 3 plus 0 is 3. 8 times 3 is 24. Negative 28 plus 24 is a negative 4. All right, now let's look at this answer. Now we're going to decrease that x to the fourth to an x cubed. But there's no x squared term and there's no x. So when we go to write our answer, we do not, I repeat, do not put 0x squared or 0x in our answer. Those are just going to be terms that are missing from the answer. 8x cubed plus 3 minus 4 over the x minus 8 is the answer here. And just one other quick thing before I end this video. There will be times when the remainder, which is the number in this box, ends up being a 0. In that instance, there will be no remainder. So you would not have this little fraction ending at the bottom or at the end of your answer. All right, so that's the video on lesson number 2, dividing polynomials.